Good afternoon. My name is Kevin Line, Operations Section Chief with Mabus, Illinois, and I'm happy to speak this afternoon with the Illinois Public Works Mutual Aid Network, IPWMAN, at their conference for 2021. Mabus has been asked to provide a short overview of the Salamander accountability system, the system that we use to track firefighters and members of special operations teams and resources. Mabus is the mutual aid box alarm system. It was established in 1968. Mabus is the statewide fire mutual aid organization, similar to ILEAS, the Illinois Law Enforcement Alarm System, what ILEAS is for law enforcement, as well as IPWMAN, the Illinois Public Works Mutual Aid Network, is for public work agencies across the state of Illinois. Mabus provides on a day-to-day basis the legal requirement for fire departments to provide mutual aid, to give mutual aid, to receive mutual aid. It provides that legal basis when agencies sign the MOU. In the absence of that MOU that fire agencies have with Mabus, each agency would have to reach out to other fire departments or municipalities that neighbor them in order to enter specific mutual aid agreements. While some communities still have these individual agreements, the Mabus MOU provides that basis for agencies across the state to give and receive mutual aid. On a disaster or an emergency response setting, Mabus works with the state of Illinois to provide fire, EMS, hazmat, technical rescue, water rescue, urban search and rescue, and other fire-related resources in the event of large-scale disasters. To help track Mabus resources, including divisional resources, as well as firefighters, Mabus uses a commercial software platform called Salamander to track this accountability. Salamander, as I said, is a commercial product. It is incorporated in several different states, and what Mabus does is we have the members of our special teams log into the system. We're able to track those members of the special teams so that in the event of a response, we're able to track them. In addition, many fire agencies across the state have their members entered in the system, and we're able to use that to track them real time during disaster or emergency response incidents. Salamander system is based up of a couple different components. It's a cloud solution in one side, and I got to give the disclaimer that although I am a Salamander product user, I do not work for them. I do not sell that product. This is just an overview of what Mabus uses in regards to the Salamander software. So when we look at the system, it is a cloud-based solution that when we're connected to the internet, we can use the system, we can able to use reports, we can track and everything that's going on with an incident. And it's also something that we do not necessarily need to have the internet for, because once the system is set up and running and we're able to track individuals that are inside the system, that we can use just regular PCs in that side in the event that when the internet is reestablished, that we're able to synchronize and that system is maintained. What's nice about the Salamander system is that this is a commercial software. As you can see here on the slide, it's incorporated in multiple states across the United States. It is not a homegrown product, and as a commercial product, we look forward to the ongoing support that it's able to provide. And as Salamander continues to expand the use of this in other states, they're incorporating the lessons learned and best practices on the updates for that system. So how Mabus uses the system is, you can see on the left, we have an ID card. We have more than 5,000 people that are firefighters from across the state that are entered into the Salamander system, the accountability system. Predominantly, these members consist of members of our hazmat, technical rescue, water rescue, urban search and rescue, swift water teams from around the state. And as I mentioned previously, that there are a lot of fire agencies that use this system and generate an ID card for their members. We also know that there's a lot of communities and municipalities that already have an ID system. So while we use this system to generate IDs for members of our special teams, this is not necessarily something that all fire agencies agencies are going to want to have an ID. But you can see on the right-hand side, there's various rows of wristbands. What we incorporate is when there's an incident and we generate an incident in the system, we identify who's going to respond to that incident. If the people have their ID cards when they're checking in, that makes it easier to be able to print off a wristband for an ID. But people don't necessarily need to have that. Once we track them into the system, we can print off those wristbands, and those wristbands can be used in several different ways. One of them is to provide a ready or rapid ID for a person. If you look at the different color codings that are on there is, for example, you can take the orange wristband, and that could be for personnel that are arriving on an incident for the first operational period or the first day. If you look at multiple day operational periods, you can use the yellow on the second operational period or day 2. You can use the red wristband on day 3, and then only those people that would be authorized on those subsequent operational periods or days would be able to have those different color-coded wristbands. You can also use the wristbands on that side to identify maybe orange would be public works people, red would be fire people. Maybe you're looking at the blue for law enforcement, and you can maybe do a color scheming to identify members of different agency types. Although typically we'll use the color coding wristbands, we'll use one wristband color for one day and just use different colors for different days on that side. That provides an easy system for identifying people for various events. One of the things that we look at, what's nice about the system is even though MABUS has just over 5,000 people that are in the system with ID cards, we know there is a significant number of firefighters that are not in the system that could show up on an incident site that may need to be tracked. So what's nice about the Salamander, again, is that you could take the Illinois driver's license. You can look at an image that I have on the screen from the Secretary of State's website, is that the Salamander system will be able to read the barcode off the back of the driver's license to be able to pull the name information up. And when we scan the driver's license, we're taking that name information that's being added into our system so that we can create an ID card for those members of the teams or the response agencies that don't have an ID card. So that works pretty well. The IDs, driver's license IDs from all 50 states work in the system. And what's nice about that is everybody has a driver's license or should have a driver's license with them when they respond. And sometimes we've seen that people don't necessarily bring their department or even their MABUS Salamander ID cards with them because that's not something that they would use on a regular basis. So the information that goes on there goes back to print the ID card or it goes to print the wristband, and that wristband can be used for tracking purposes. Kind of want to walk into a little bit of MABUS use of the system and give you a case study example for that. Prior to June of this year, MABUS would, when we had exercises or events, we'd have one of our command vehicles or the mission support unit would show up on the scene. We'd have a couple of our credentialing people that would be there, and we'd have people, we'd check their ID cards, their Salamander ID cards, or we take their driver's license to scan them in. We were planning, before our series of large-scale events in June, we were planning a series of exercises in which we can use the Salamander system. We can identify resources that would be going to the scene or to the incident. Similar to what I understand IPWMAN does is when they make those notifications, those agencies that are responding submit a roster with the vehicle information as well as the personnel. So in coordination with our statewide fire communication center, Red Center, we're using a element of Salamander called the command feature. And command was able to, when divisions or agencies were submitting their personnel rosters, we were able to pull those names out of the system, Red Center personnel were, or add those people into the system. And we were able to generate in Salamander an organizational chart or a roster of individuals. And again, that was something that we were looking to practice in June for our exercise series. But when June 14th came around, we had the Rockton fire response. Many of you are familiar with that response. Over the course of several days, we had more than 350 firefighters, EMS workers, fire chief officers, representing 167 fire agencies from 29 of our MABUS divisions or regions in the state respond to that incident. MABUS was able to use the Salamander system starting on that second operational period or that evening time of the 14th. And from that point on, as we were at a 90% rate of tracking the firefighters, the EMS personnel, the chief officers, the other fire-related people that got to the scene. And that was went from training the week before into incorporating that with a high level of success remotely from Red Center with that tracking. So what we learned with that system and the ability to track people with Salamander that way is in a nutshell, we had a response. We identified who was going to go. We had them submit their rosters, their agency submitted the rosters, and again, similar to what I understand IPWMAN does when they have their response efforts, we're able to populate that in a system. So, and the idea with that is we had an accountability of those personnel and resources remotely before they even got to the scene. Well, as part of this test, we did not incorporate the use of Salamander on the scene. Mavis was happy that we were able to track those people starting that second operational period with Rockton and moving forward with the majority of those numbers that I just listed, or you can see on the screen right there. So that was pretty good. And since that time, we've been working diligently to incorporate this with other responses. We use this with the Morris lithium battery fire response at the end of the month. So fresh off of this response, there was the DuPage tornado that took place the week after mid-June. IPWMAN had a response to Woodridge as part of the tornado for the damage cleanup with, from what I understand, it was the tree removal and the limb removal that was to take place working with the village of Woodridge. So myself and the branch chief, Tim Littlefield, went out to Woodridge, met with the IPWMAN executive board members, and kind of gave an overview of how Salamander worked. After we left Woodridge on that day, we had talked about wanting to use the system again and was kind of looking at it to do some more training to see how we can work through that. Well, Mavis continued to work through June with the large scale events on that side. And then in August, there was the microburst or tornado damage that took place in Lake in the Hills, which was another IPWMAN's response. When IPWMAN was planning that response in coordination with Lake in the Hills, Mavis was asked to provide an overview of the Salamander system and to see if we couldn't track the resources real time with that. So what we ended up doing with Lake in the Hills is we brought our command vehicle that was out there. I'm sure some of you that are in attendance today was out at Lake in the Hills for that. And what we had set up with that is we set up the incident type. We had individuals come through the back of the vehicle or the side of the vehicle. They were able to check in. You can see the image on the right shows the computer setups that we have. And some of our fire credentialing people were there from the same communities that IPWMAN had requested public works vehicles from. They had worked through the system. They had went in line. They had scanned their driver's license. Their information came up on that side that was confirmed from the organizations. And then they were able to print off that rapid tag ID for them or the wristband. And at that point, they were able to exit out. So with really just not even a minute or two per person to go through, we had the personnel that were checked into the scene. We also worked on that side with the vehicles to be able to account for the vehicles. In this next image, you can see I kind of did a screenshot of a Salamander report or one page of it. I did leave off the names of the people from this report, but this was showing a personnel report. You can see on the bottom of the screen that this is there was 40 personnel that were assigned to it. This is just one of the screenshots for it, indicating 10 people. But you can see that the organization that they represented, this is only a minimum screenshot of what took place, but you can see that when they were checking off the scene was after 2 o'clock when they were returning home. So when we look at on this next slide here, we look at a representation of all the vehicles that were involved. You can see the agencies and the type of vehicle that was involved with it. You can see a couple fields inside here, like the checked in category. When the members got there, they were checked into the system, and then they were assigned back onto their vehicles. You can see that they were off scene. And even what really helped is IPWMAN worked with the Lake in the Hills group to establish two different operational zones where they were working. And we were able to assign these vehicles and personnel into the different zones that they were working. So at any point in time, people that were looking at the Salamander live screen in the back of the command vehicle or in the Lake in the Hills Public Works office where we were set up, they were able to see how many vehicles were there, where the personnel were at the time, and in the big scheme of things, they were able to track the number of personnel that were there, the number of hours that were there, the vehicles that were there, the type of vehicles that were there, and in the grand scheme of things, when you look at the damage assessment to be able to track personnel and equipment cost that could be used to contribute towards the threshold that's needed for a disaster declaration that could potentially bring in reimbursement for money, the system really proved to be valuable in that application for that. So the Salamander system that we have, Mavis has been using this for some years. And just kind of recap here is that in June, we started working to be able to build a database of resources as incidents came up. And from the Rockton incident and to our other incidents, including the EMAC deployments where we put Illinois Task Force 1, the state's urban search and rescue team, to Hurricane Ida for the response, as well as the fire engine strike teams we sent down there. We were able to use Salamander to be able to track and account for those personnel. On the equipment side of it, Mavis is still working to update an older inventory system to put that information into the Salamander system so that working forward in the future, we look forward to be able to, for an incident, to be able to pull from the database vehicles as well as personnel to be able to manage the incident and then take care of the accountability of individuals as well as the accounting of the cost, make that more effective. So in conclusion today, I'd like to thank you for your attendance today. Hope you have a good conference with it. Mavis is here to support IPWMAN. Mavis does have an MOU directly with IPWMAN to provide assistance. We are here to help support that side of it. And on the screen right now, you're able to see my contact information as well as Tim Littlefield. Tim Littlefield, again, is our plans branch chief at Mavis, and he's the one directly working with your leadership team with IPWMAN on the Salamander system. So hope everybody has a good conference and hope you found this information beneficial. And again, my name is Kevin Line, the Operations Section Chief with Mavis, Illinois. Thank you and have a good afternoon.